Morning. So today I'm going to talk about goal setting, which in my experience is something that everyone has heard of and thinks is important, but it tends to be the kind of thing that people skip over or don't do very well. And I think that's really because we try and just get it done really quickly, to be honest. So what I'm going to encourage you to do with your Smart Chalkbag package is to really take some time to think about this element in some more detail. So you're going to be thinking about what goals you want to set, how you're going to achieve those goals, and also why they are important. And there's sort of three different ways that you can do that. So within the guide, and I guess the guide is kind of your workbook, as it were, that's going to encourage you to think about initially, what's your end point here? So what is the goal that you want? And quite often people will come up with something that's more of an aspiration than a goal, if that makes sense. So for example, I want to climb 7A, or I want to win the next competition, or I really want to boulder a V5 or something like that. Okay, now I would say that's an aspiration. That doesn't really give you a lot of flesh on the bones for what it is you want to achieve, why you want to achieve it, and how you're going to achieve it. And I think everyone's sort of heard of SMART goals, and they are really useful, but in reality, what we're looking at is SMART goals that are process driven if possible. Okay, so I would be encouraging you to take a minute, take that big dream or aspiration you have, and think about, okay, where am I now? What skills do I have now? How close or how far am I away from that particular aspiration? And you can do this as well by using, asking your climbing partner, for example, using some of the climbing skills assessments that are out there. There's a free download in my shop as well, which helps you to look at the mental side, particularly in the tactical side, of how you might get to a particular goal. So those are really important points. I think it's also really useful if you can narrow it down from a broad kind of grade-based goal into a specific route or problem or skill that you want to master. And the reason for that really is that ideally, to keep us motivated, we need something that is close to our hearts, that makes us feel good about ourselves, but that's more about mastery rather than a kind of an outcome, if that makes sense. So if we're more interested in learning something as we go along, that's going to keep us motivated for longer than just being focused on a kind of an outcome, if that makes sense. All right, so take some time, use the guide, scribble some notes, have a think, maybe do the self-assessment as well, and try to pin down your goal into something that is a bit more measurable. You can use the kind of the SMART goals planning sheet here, but you're looking for process goals, really, the way you're going to get from where you are now to that kind of that dream or aspiration, and making those specific, measurable, achievable, realistic, and timely. When am I going to do this? Okay, so that's part of it. I think it's then useful to maybe switch into the training guide. Okay, so this is like a standalone workbook really, but this is going to help you to look at your climbing values, I guess. What's important to you about climbing? And this is going to give you the why. And I think this is the thing that's important when you are feeling tired or unmotivated or progress isn't happening, is tapping back into why you're doing it. So I would encourage you to think about what it is you love about climbing, what you first enjoyed. If you can think back to when you very first started climbing, what was it you loved about climbing? What really grabbed you and caught your attention? I also think it's about thinking about the goal you've got right now, and you've got the mental training package. Why did you buy that? So what was important about that for you? What were you hoping? And again, it's better if possible to have what I'd call approach-based goals rather than avoidance-based goals. So an example of that would be if I am wanting to do some mental training because I'm kind of sick of fluffing my moves and I never manage to get the beta right or whatever, even when people tell me I just can't visualize what I'm doing. That's a little bit of an avoidance goal. It's like I don't want to look silly. So an approach goal on that same topic would be something like, I'm really keen to learn the skills of visualization. All right, so we're thinking about things that move us towards where we want to go, as opposed to things that we want to avoid. All right, so similarly, if anxiety is your thing and you're getting really worried about leading or just climbing in front of other people, for example, I'd be thinking about goals which were about moving you towards where you wanted to go. So that would be developing some mastery over your emotions, or learning how to focus on the climbing as opposed to what people are watching or thinking about us. So we're always looking for those approach-based goals. Kind of moving on from that, so we've got a bit of what, and we've got a bit of why. We're then going to try and look at how we're going to achieve those. And then you're going to turn, I guess, back into this book, and we're looking for actions, all right? So actions that you can take. So if your goal, for example, is to boulder V5, and you recognize actually you really need to work on your sloper skills. So your goal might be around learning the best way to use your body when you're tackling slopers, for example. You're going to try and identify different ways of achieving that. So it could be that every time I go climbing, I'm going to attempt 5 sloper problems. It could be I'm also going to look on the internet for some hot tips on that. It could be that I recognize that I need to keep my body in alignment, so I need to find a way of holding that in mind, that I'm kind of underneath my hand as I'm pulling on the sloper. All right, so those are the kinds of actions that you're looking to take. It could be as well that you've recognised that you get very frustrated when you fall off the slopers, and so you're wanting to learn how to manage that frustration so it doesn't disrupt your next attempt. So thinking about those, breaking it down into specific actions that you can take and getting those down on paper. Now, the other part of the how is how we fit it into our life, okay? And that, I think, is always the trickier bit. So what you'll find in here, in the guide, are some sort of hints and tips about scheduling your life, looking for little bits of time where you can focus on particular skills. They don't have to be long sometimes. It can be windows of 5 minutes or so while you're waiting for the kettle to boil or whatever it is, bit of dead time that you have in the day. But just looking for bits of the day that are, where you can slot in some training or mental training. Within your guide as well, you'll also see your training journal, you'll also see a slightly different slant on that, which is about your values in your life. And are you doing things in the week that are moving you towards your goals or away from your goals? So a really good example, and one that we're all guilty of, I think, at times, is spending lots of time on social media, kind of scrolling. That's not really moving us towards our goals, unless our goal is to connect with the whole Facebook world. But using something that time instead, perhaps, to move you towards your goal of doing left wall or something like that, then you might be spending that time instead trying to visualize how you're going to do that, for example. So that's part of that, looking for those windows of time and looking for things also that you're doing in the week that are moving you away from where you want to go. There's also a bit in the guide then about changing habits, and what we sort of suggest really is that you try to hook on anything new into an existing routine. So an example is, I'm not a morning person. If I ever set a goal which involves me getting up before the time I would normally get up, it's just not going to happen. I'm much better off trying to tie the actions that are really important to me to something I'm already doing in the day. So for example, every day I clean my teeth. Therefore, I'm going to spend that time while I'm cleaning my teeth thinking about a particular route that I want to get dialed, for example. So it's just an example. You'll think of other things you routinely do where you can hook in some of this new training stuff. And then there's also the bit here about making a commitment. And there's something really important about writing it down. So I think this is another area where we perhaps inadvertently sabotage ourselves, and we have the goals up here, but we don't make a kind of an outward commitment to them. So getting them down on paper, there's lots of different places you can do that. We've kind of gone for repetition on this. So you can do it in the training journal. You can get them down in the guide as well. I'll just find that page. So get them down there, your goals as well. And then in terms of the cards, you'll also find in the cards as well a place to write them down. So this is the bit that I think you're going to take to the wall or to the crag with you. It's a reminder there about what you're doing and why you're doing it, what your process goals are, and what the actions you're going to take each time are. So you've got 3 different places to write those down. I would say use those 3 opportunities because it's really going to sort of hammer it home in your mind. If you really want to go one step further as well, I would encourage you use the Facebook page for people who are using the Smart Chalkbag to make your goals public. And that's another way of kind of holding yourself to account. All right, there's quite a lot of information there. So just to recap, spend some time looking at goal setting. Don't just kind of do a quick one, that'll do. Have a real think. Why have you bought this package? Why do you want to improve your mental skills? Why do you want to improve your climbing? What is it that's important to you about climbing? What do you love about climbing? That's all the reasons for doing this. What are the goals, and really elaborate on that in quite a deep way so that you have got a very specific and clear idea about what you're aiming for. And then also really spend the time looking at how, because goals without actions are kind of empty, we want to really think about how you're going to fit that into your life. So doing a kind of a daily or weekly audit, just to figure out, okay, where is my time going? We're all really busy, but what we're busy doing, are the things that I'm doing moving me towards where I want to go or away from where I want to go? And in general, thinking about making sure that your goals and your plans are all sort of approach rather than avoidance. So moving you towards the direction, moving you forwards, and not about avoiding things necessarily. Okay, I hope that all makes sense to you. It's a bit more flesh on the bones for some of the exercises in the book. And you know, this is a really massive topic actually, so to do it justice, it takes quite a while. I would say if you've got questions, things you're stuck on, you're not sure about, then put them in the comments to this, and I will try to answer them. All right, look forward to hearing about all your goals. Please get them up here if you can, and we'll hold each other to account.